And when we talk about vintage Chicago, we have to talk about the Chicago's World's Fair and how a European people literally rewrote history and wrote the true history of Chicago out of accordance and wrote the real empire of the children of the sun who ruled in Chicago completely out of history, including its founding father, John Baptiste Decibel, who founded Chicago, or the city of Shilaga, who became a part of the empire of Shilaga because of his wife, Katahewa, and she was a part of the Potawatomi tribe, which was actually the empire of the children of the sun of the land of Shilaga, which was the northern empire from St. Louis, from Indianapolis to New Orleans to Memphis. These were all empires that were connected, and John Baptiste Decibel became a part of that. And he was unfortunately written out of history. And until recent times, he was actually given his accolade. And someone did a bust, a statue for him. And they do a homage for his wife and her tribe, representing the colors, which represented the ultraviolet electromagnetic connection to the Aether Rim the children of the sun have. And they do this ceremony yearly in honor of the empire that was taken over. And of course, the Europeans wanted to create the fake narrative that these were temporary structures made out of plaster and wood and just cheap materials. But these were actual structures. These were buildings that were connected to the DNA, the melanin pigmentation, and the electromagnetic energy of the children of the sun. And what we have left now in modern times are still some of the structures that they said were, temporary, which are completely made out of stone. I mean, these were powerful structures, and we still have some remnants of, the statues left where the great empire once stood that was torn down and demolished. And these buildings were demolished because they were connected to our DNA, to our spiritual energy. And this is what invigorated us. And they knew that if they destroyed these temples and these palaces, that they could destroy our power, and it would take the power away from us, and they would be able to put us under the spell that they have us under now, not knowing the truth about sound, vibration, frequency, aether energy, or the power and ingenuity of our ancestors. And this is what every building was about in the old world. It was about powering the human condition. So although these structures look beautiful, and they are beautiful, they were designed to heal you. And in Chicago, in every state you see in the United States, these are remnants of the empire, the old buildings you see that are now deactivated and no longer channel the aether-free energy that invigorates the DNA of the children of the sun. And they had to shut these temples down. They had to shut these buildings down so that we wouldn't be empowered. And they took over the business districts because it was more about controlling the power, the greed, the natural resources, But our people had created a business network that was coastal, that brought in multitudes of business. And this is what they wanted to destroy, as well as the structure. But this is how they destroyed the cities, burnt them down, destroyed the technology, tried to disconnect us from our ancient ancestors, and turned the world into darkness and rewrote history as if they were not, taking over an empire that once befriended them. And then we have the fake history. Now with AI, they're creating all these fake videos saying this is how we made the World's Fair. Take in mind, none of this video or footage or photography ever existed before AI. But if you look at these AI redacted photos trying to say this is the rediscovered photos of how they built the World's Fair, none of this links to any kind of blueprints, any kind of construction documentation of elements that they use with horse and buggy and hammer and chisel to build any of this. So this is AI creating a fantastical imaginary world of them creating with horse and buggy, hammer and chisel with no technology, these great, remarkable structures. This is how they rewrite history. They're going to lie to you using AI. And AI is making it look like, oh yeah, they put the scaffolding all up. They really built this, but this is all lies. None of this ever existed. They did not have the technology to build any of these structures. And there's really no documentations that anyone ever provided any kind of material to build any of the things that we see. So this is AI. This is their technology at work. And this is how they're going to rewrite history and put photographs in future books that's going to show them actually being the inventors and keep the children of the sun as a non-existent people that never had power. But this is AI. And this is another version of AI, with them recreating the whole city, the whole World's Fair, They recreated it. This is their AI version. So this is what they can do with AI. They can take pictures and make them look like still shots, and they can put their people in there and have them in our clothing and riding our Ferris wheels that generated energy as it went around. It wasn't just about amusement. It was more about invigoration, because everything was about invigorating you. But they're showing themselves shopping and, parading around in the empire. And with AI, they're going to officially be able to rewrite history. So while we have the opportunity to discuss this and watch videos that's showing them rewriting history with AI as our proof, I'm just trying to tell you that the history that you have been fed is all lies, and you're being fed a false history and a false narrative. And these people will have you believing that they came over here and found little good Native Americans on little teepees, taking little canoe boats. And, there was just pastures of land, and they were building with horseback and buggy. Not telling you, there was already cities. There was already sprawling communities. There was already export, import, and trade and business, law, legislation, and a government established here being ruled by the empire of the children of the sun. They don't tell you this in history. They don't tell you there were steamships and there was technology. So you have white people years later who came up with the World's Fair after they conquered, and they wanted to put on an exposition and charge people to see what they were going to destroy before they destroyed it. And that's what that was about. And thus you had the World's Fairs, where they charged their people to see the glory of our empire before it was destroyed. And after these World Fairs were charging people and they were able to rewrite history, taking pictures as if these were empires that they actually controlled and built themselves, they just started to destroy the empires. And there are many multitudes of stories that were told by residents of these areas and these communities who at night would hear the destruction and the wars going on. And some said they heard things that sound like it was a technological plasmic warfare in the sky, because the skies became so darkened with just darkness. And then they would see these lights, these strange lights all over skies, like there was some type of galactic reset going on within the atmosphere. And these empires were slowly being dismantled, and the wars were being started, and the empires were starting to go against one another. And this is the history that has been written out of how the children of the sun, who ruled in Europe, Spain, Africa, Asia, North, Southern America, Canada, Greenland, how we had our stake of claim of power in all these empires. But the stories have been told that it was a devastating time and a very dark period to witness as the empires of the children of the sun began to fall one by one. And every war you ever heard of, from the Civil War to World War I, World War II, these are all wars that were about dismantling the former empire and the bloodlines that once ruled, and the rewriting of history and the psychological reprogramming of the minds of the so-called Negroes and Black people here in America, so that they would never know the truth, and they would forever be restricted to know who their ancestors were, or what their ancestors truly accomplished, or where the power of this world truly originates from. So this is what the burning of the cities was about when they tell you Chicago was on fire, San Diego was on fire, New Orleans, Florida, New York, Chicago, everywhere, Indianapolis, all over, Texas. They were burning their empires on a mission to destroy every architectural structure and design, because the power of the people resided in the structures of the building and the architectural ingenuity itself.